Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be. I'm glad to be here today. I'm glad to be able to share on the owner's call. I love doing these owner's calls. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think that this is the most important thing that we are doing every single week, every other week. It is super, super important to the business, and it is super, super important to your growth. And this opportunity, this time, it really allows you to pull back, to focus, to think about your business, and to put things in place that can help your business run better and smoother and more efficient. So I love doing these calls. I love preparing for these calls, and I think that these are, great for business. As we get kicked off here today, we're into the third quarter of the year. We're coming, to the end of summer. We're rolling into fall. And so I think it's really important to just kind of, refocus and look at the business and really make sure that you're moving in the right direction. And the first thing that I want to do is just go over the flywheel, right? Because the flywheel is so important to the business. I believe that this should be on, every entryway in every conference room, that, we should have our flywheel up so we know what we are delivering to our customers. And that starts with an incredible customer experience, right? Everything we do is focused on that experience. Let me just share with you that, we won a project with Enterprise for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for 48 locations that we're entering into contract with. We weren't the highest price. We weren't the lowest price. We weren't the mid-low price. We were profitable, and that's what's really important. And, when our team was talking to them about engaging, they said, you know what, we've decided to go with you because everything we know about your company is about an incredible customer experience. We have looked no further. And that's why that incredible customer experience is so important to your business, because that wins jobs. That reputation wins jobs. That reputation wins work, right? So we want to be really, really focused on an incredible customer experience. Why? It's going to lead to more reviews, more Google reviews, more 5-star reviews, right? That leads to, better branding, better projects, which leads to better subcontractor pricing, which leads to better pricing from subcontractors, which in turn is better pricing on projects, higher pricing on projects, more reviews. These things are incredible for your business, which then leads to happy employees, happy staff, happy customers. And, when you've got the money to operate the job, the subs get paid more, you get paid more, the margins are higher, everybody is happier. So we really want to focus on this incredible customer experience. I just want to share one more story with you. We're working with a condo client on a project in our South Seattle territory, and it's a huge project for some security walls. It's very, very expensive. And we got an email back from the client, and they said, you know what, based on your reputation, based on the work that you've done with this management company, based on everything that we found about you, we are not entertaining quotes from any other provider. When you think about that for a minute, everything that we delivered was so top-notch that they're not even thinking about working with somebody else. And that is what separates you from your competition. That is an amazing key driver in your business. That takes your business to the next level. So one of the biggest costs that you should factor into your budget is the cost of delivering an incredible customer experience. Do you have that line item in your budget? And if you don't, I urge you to add that into your budget, because what does it cost? Like if you're spending $10,000 a month on marketing, $3,000 a month on marketing, $1,000 a month on marketing, whatever you're spending on marketing, what are you spending on the incredible customer experience? Because that is what drives business. That is what makes you successful. That is what takes the business to the next level. And I think that that is super, super important as you're growing and building your brand. And I don't want this to just be, hey, Dave's talking about at me at the same stuff. I hear the same stuff over and over again. Well, you hear it because it's so important. It's so vital. These calls are so vital because they take us back to the basics. It's all about the pillars of the business. What is the foundation of the business? What is the business sitting on? And how are we running that, right? So my recommendation is focus on this incredible customer experience. I want to run through the core values. Be engaged. How does that affect our business? Well, let's talk about the core values today and how they affect an incredible customer experience. I'll give you an example. We were sitting in a meeting, and one of our people, Matthias, was in the meeting, and we were working with the client, and Matthias was on his smartphone, and Matthias was taking notes like crazy on his smartphone. Just, he was really engaged and he was really listening to what was happening. And, he took 3 or 4 pages of notes. And, we left the meeting, thought we had a great meeting. And then we got an email back from the client, and the client said, hey, we were really disappointed in the way that meeting went. We were like, what? This is crazy. What do you mean you're disappointed? And the customer said, well, Matthias was on his phone the entire time. That's huge. Matthias was taking notes. He was doing his job. He was 100% right. And we were actually blown away, and Matthias grabbed his notes and he printed them out and, whatever, and we sent them over to the client. We were like, actually, no, here's all the notes we were taking. And the client's response was, oh, wow, that's crazy. I'm so sorry. I can't believe that. These notes are amazing. You got everything we talked about. This is absolutely phenomenal. But I just couldn't tell because he was on his smartphone. So being engaged is being engaged in what the customer is talking about, what's happening with the customer, but it's also perception. And it's one of the reasons why I believe in old-fashioned notepads. Right? Because it's the perception of taking notes. When you go out and you give a bid to a client, we don't want you just to listen, right? I hate being at a restaurant and I'm like, yeah, I would like the pollo alla crema, and I would like that with no tomatoes and no mushrooms and no onions and no vegetables at all. Actually, anything that's a vegetable, just cut it out right now. And they're like, okay, got it. And then they go take 8 more orders. And I'm just thinking, okay, this thing is coming back with mushrooms. And what happened this last Sunday? My pollo alla crema had mushrooms in it. Why? Because that waiter or waitress wasn't totally engaged in the conversation. And if you don't take notes, you don't get everything. So taking notes is so vital, so important, but it also shows the customer, hey, I'm engaged in what's going on. I'm paying attention to what's going on. Hey, this person, they're taking notes. They must be interested in what I'm talking about. And it creates an amazing connection between you and the customer. And so what we want to do to deliver this incredible customer experience is we have to be engaged in every aspect of the business. One of the things about leadership that I believe is if I'm sitting down with Rich, who's behind the camera right now shooting me, doing a great job, looks slightly uncomfortable, but he's still doing a great job. If Rich and I are having a conversation and Rich wants to tell me something, I'm going to say, hold on, Rich, let me grab my notepad so I can take notes, so I can hear what he's saying, so I can listen to him, so I can repeat back what he's saying to me. I want Rich to feel heard. Rich is important. I don't want Rich to leave and think, gosh, that guy's a real jerk. He didn't even really have time for me, and he didn't even pay attention to what I was saying. What am I doing here? I want Rich to feel like he left the conversation and it's like, oh man, that's awesome. And Rich is always coming up and giving me little tidbits, little shout outs. I love that, right? He's engaged. The other day he came and said, hey man, you look really good in that blue shirt. I was like, oh, that's so nice, man. Thank you. But just engaged in what's happening, engaged in the video, engaged in those tips. This shirt, he's probably going to be like, that was a horrible shirt. It had all those stripes in it. He looked like a zebra. I don't know. It's going to be pretty funny. but just being engaged in the business is so important, right? And now let's talk about be nimble. Let's focus on what be nimble means. You know, and I think that this is so important. And as I manage salespeople, I often have to put myself in their position. And I have an idea, and I'll just put it to you like this, and I'll say, well, my sales guy comes to me and he wants to sign a contract, a big snow contract or a big remodel project contract or whatever it is, and he comes and he says, hey, this is the client's contract. And I'm like, in my Dave Wescott owner and CEO hat, I say, well, I'm not going to agree to this, and I'm not going to agree to this, and I'm not going to agree to this, and why didn't you sell this, and why didn't you do this better, and why didn't you do that? And I'm like, I can kill the deal right there. But then I go and I put on my salesman's hat, and I'm like, you know what? If I was the salesman, I would agree to these terms. If I was the salesperson, I would say okay to this. If I was the salesperson, I would give this discount because I'm trying to sell the job. And so often it's easy for us as owners to put restrictions on our employees that they cannot execute upon. And we think that they're just going to become superhuman and get that done. And we have to put ourselves in the shoes of our team members. And that's one of the ways we can be nimble. And if we are nimble in that way, we will deliver an incredible customer experience to our clients. So what was the moral of the story? I went to Jonathan and I said, Jonathan, redline this thing. And Jonathan goes back and he redlines this contract with all of these things in it. And it says, oh my goodness, you know, this looks like a horrible contract. Then I go and I ask him and I say, hey, if they won't negotiate on this contract, what should I do? What is your recommendation? He's like, well, none of that's really that big of a deal. All of this stuff is just stuff we wish we had. But there was nothing that was glaring. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I went back to the sales guy and I was like, hey, listen, we want this deal. We want our foot in the door. We know what we're going to do. Let's just sign it and move on and get the deal closed. And instead of making it difficult for my salesperson to close the deal, I was nimble. I was flexible. I put myself in their position so that they could have sales, so they could have commissions, so that they could hit their goals, so that the business could be successful. I didn't make it so difficult. That's me being nimble. And sometimes it's really hard to think and put ourselves in the shoes of our employees. Hey, you want your employees taking calls at 9, 10 o'clock at night? My question is, are you taking calls at 9 or 10 o'clock at night? Think about that. Hey, you want your employees to work on Christmas. Are you working on Christmas? See, I ride for the brand. So at the end of the day, if my team is working late on snow, I'm working late on snow. If my team's working on Christmas, I'm working on Christmas. I could take Christmas off if I want to. I can do whatever I want. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be nimble for my team. I'm going to be there for my team so that my team knows I am with them. I am supporting them. I am in the battlefield with them. And I think that's so important as leaders that we lead from the front. And we can't do that if we aren't nimble. And if we aren't nimble, we cannot deliver an incredible customer experience. So we have to be focused on this. We have to drill down on how do we be nimble and how do we do this. I'll give you an example. A customer calls Home Street Bank and they say, hey man, listen, we've got all these board ups during the riots, during COVID and all that. And they got all these banks that need to be board up. They called and said, hey, do you do bank board ups? Yeah, absolutely we do bank board ups. Awesome. That's fantastic. Can you get in there and board them all up for us? Can you get there today? Yes. We were nimble for our client. We delivered an incredible customer experience. A client that's been a client, for like 13, 14 years, right? What do I always talk about? You want to grow your business. What do? You keep your clients, you keep your employees. So important, but we can't do that unless we're nimble. See it through. Stay on target. What an important core value. Gosh, isn't this everything we do? Isn't this everything we are? See it through. What does that mean? Hey, let me give you an example. Hey, you know what? I'll have your bid over tonight. You get distracted, you get something blows up during the day, it's 6 o'clock at night, you got dinner with your family, then you got your kids' recital, then your favorite show's on at 9, and all of a sudden they don't get a proposal. Is that seeing it through? Is that delivering an incredible customer experience? See, here's the thing. I think if you're going to say something, you got to do something, and you got to be the one who gets it done, right? If you say you're going to do it, then do it. Don't be flaky, right? Keep your word. That is so important to see it through. So in my world, what happens is something happens in the middle of the day, I'm distracted, then I have dinner, or I'm having dinner with the family, I go to the kids' recital, I watch my favorite show, it's 10 o'clock at night, and you know what I do? I go sit in the computer room for 4 hours until I get the bid done, because I promised I would get them done. And then I send them an email at midnight or 11:30, and I say, as promised, here is the bid delivered today. And I go above and beyond for my customers. And I remember the very first time that I did this was way, 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 way before the Trans Blue Days. And I was sitting there with a guy by the name, I was working on a contract for the guy by the name of David Sieber. And I was sitting there, and it was the office, and it was 10:54 p.m. And I'm just so tired, and I'm so exhausted, and I'm so ready to go home, and I got a 20-minute drive to the house. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just pounding out this estimate, and I'm going over it, and I'm attaching the documents, and I put it together. 10:54, boom, I send him the bid. As promised, here's the bid. $64,000. I got an email at 5:30 in the morning. You're a man of your word. This work is approved. Boom! And I thought to myself right there, that's why I grind. That's why I work harder than everybody else. That's why I do what no one else is willing to do. I see it through. I take care of my customers because that is my promise. That is my diligence. A lot of times I work many more hours than I want to because I promised. I've learned to say, I'll have this over to you no later than tomorrow morning, and now I try to get it off that evening. But we got to see it through. We got to see it through with our rocks and our goals. We got to see it through with our EOS meetings. EOS is an absolute game changer in your business. It's absolutely fundamental in your business. Why? Because it smokes out non-producers, right? If we set rocks and goals and to-dos, and we set those for a 90-day period, and then people don't produce in that 90 days, you know it. When they don't produce in 90 days, what you get to see is the people who aren't producing. And when you see them not produce quarter after quarter after quarter, you know they're not good for your business. Therefore, you know who not to work with. And a lot of times those non-producers are going to weed themselves out. So we really, 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 really need to focus on see it through. As an owner, see it through with your construction meeting. Every single week, never miss. As an owner, see it through with your sales meeting. Today I was on a sales meeting for an hour and a half with my sales guys, going over amazing stuff. Guess what we went over? Same stuff you hear from me all the time. Guess what we went over? What is the percentage? How many times you have to follow up with a customer to close a deal? 5 to 8 times. It was really cool. You know why? Because I was on the call and I had just sent my weekly email follow-up at 9:14 a.m. And we were on the call, and at 9:25 a.m., I had a customer respond back and said, "You're good to go on the job. I'm approving it." 30 minutes after that, another customer emails in, "Hey, I'm ready to approve the work." By the time I get off the call, I've already closed 3 jobs. And one of those customers I followed up with 34 times. One of those customers I've been following up with since the beginning of the year. And they finally said, "We are good to go. We are ready to pull the trigger." And that is the power of the follow-up. That is the power of see it through. See it through on your follow-ups. See it through on your job handoff. See it through on your proposals. See it through on the speed of your proposals to your customers. These things are a part of your DNA. They are a part of your business. They are a part of your culture. I'm going to get real with you now. You got to have grit. Gotta have grit. I'll just give you an example, a couple examples of grit. This last week, 2 weeks ago, in our office, we have an air conditioning. You've all been there. You've all been in. You've all seen the big barn. And, we've got the air conditioning going on. And the air conditioning needs to be at 72 degrees at all times, right? And if you move it down, that's okay. But it can only move down 1 degree at a time. We've been through this with our team. Hey, listen, don't touch the controls on the air conditioning unit. Don't touch the controls. It has significant damage. Don't do it. So what happens? Somebody goes over and they turn the air conditioner down to 65. They turn it down 7 degrees on a hot day. Somebody was in their space, really hot, uncomfortable, made a decision. You know what happened? It froze the condenser coil, shut down the machine, blew a pipe. It means we didn't have air conditioning the entire next day. Cost us $800 to get it up and running. And now it's still not fixed because it fried the motherboard. And the motherboard is going to cost us another $2,000 plus another $1,000 in labor. And so we as a company have lost $3,800, not to mention all the time, all the aggravation. No heat, no AC yesterday, no AC today, just a fan blowing. It's not the most comfortable environment. But why is that? That's because, one, somebody wasn't for each other. Somebody wasn't help first. Somebody wasn't have grit. And as a business owner, you have to look at that and say, I'm going to have grit. And I'm not going to have a grand inquisition. And I'm not going to lay into all these folks. And I'm not going to go show them how disappointed I am. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have grit. And I'm just going to say, Lord, I put it in your hands. Thank you very much that the air conditioning went out. And I'm going to do that. But at the end of the day, that's so tough. It's tough mentally because you think as an owner, did somebody do that on purpose? Would somebody purposely turn the air conditioning down? Is somebody secretly sabotaging things in the business? Why would they do that? Do they understand how much this costs? They understand, what it takes to fix these things? They understand what that meant for everybody else? And that person probably just did it innocently and thought, man, I'm hot. I'm just going to turn this down. I know they said not to, but I'm just going to do it anyway because I want to be comfortable. And so as an owner, you got to have grit through that. You got to have grit to pay the bill. You got to have grit to take care of the air conditioning guy. You got to have grit to not let it affect the rest of the team. And those are just some of the simple mental battles that we go through on a daily basis.